Number 18, concerning the budget presentation.
Government orders, Ways and Means number 18, budgetary policy of the government.
Monsieur Oliver.
Mr. Oliver, seconded by Mr. Sorensen, moves that the House approves in general the budgetary policy of the government.
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I rise before this House today to table budget documents for 2015, including notices of Ways and Means motions.
The details of the measures are contained in these documents, and I am asking that an order of the day be designated for consideration of these motions. I also wish to announce that the government will introduce legislation to implement the measures in the budget.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud to present Economic Action Plan 2015, our government's plan for growth and opportunity. It is a prudent and principled plan that will see Canadians more prosperous, more secure, and ever more confident in our country's place in the world. The story of Canada has always been the story of opportunity. Opportunity is what has drawn people here from around the world, generation after generation. It is what draws them still. Opportunity for themselves and for their families. The opportunity to work hard, dream big, and achieve those dreams. On a personal note, I will be forever grateful to my grandparents for their fateful decision to immigrate to Canada more than 100 years ago. Like so many others, they chose liberation over oppression, opportunity over stagnation, a bright future over a gathering storm. The federal budget is, on the face of it, about dollars and cents. But on a more fundamental level, it is a path to opportunity, and it is in this spirit that I present it today. I do so acknowledging that we live in what continues to be challenging times. Partout dans le monde.
Around the world, many nations, including some of our friends and allies, remain mired in a struggle for fiscal security. Global growth coming out of the Great Recession has been lackluster. Geopolitical uncertainty continues to hobble the recovery. And of course, the dramatic plunge in oil prices has taken its toll on our economy.
Still, the news for Canada is by and large good. Amid the tumult, our country remains a beacon of economic stability and security built on a foundation of sound financial management. Now, I cannot go further, Mr. Speaker, without saluting the man who, through fiscal acumen, careful stewardship, and love of country, can take so much credit for this, my predecessor, Jim Flaherty. It is because of Mr. Flaherty's efforts and the leadership of our Prime Minister that we are in a position to move forward. It is because of their disciplined and deliberate choices in dark times that rather than privation and painful austerity, we face a future of opportunity and possibilities. That path is the right path for Canada. I recall the words of another man who, half a century ago, served as Canada's Minister of Finance, the Honourable Donald Fleming. Like me, he was a proud member of a Conservative government, and like me, he had the honour of representing the good people of Eglinton, the predecessor to my own riding of Eglinton-Lawrence in the great city of Toronto. We have withstood the disturbing calm of recession, and the winds of prosperity again fill our sails, he told this House. With a united, determined, and confident population, Canada marches on unflinchingly towards its bright destiny. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, our economy is now substantially larger than it was pre-recession, a performance that remains the envy, indeed, yes, the envy of the G7. International observers expect Canada's growth, already ahead of our peers during the recovery, to continue to be solid, and that our net debt to GDP ratio will continue to be the lowest in the G7.
The causes of global financial challenges are complex and largely beyond our control. But our responses, the choices we have made, have been direct and unambiguous. We have cut taxes to their lowest level in more than half a century. We have made the largest, longest federal infrastructure commitment in our country's history. We have negotiated free trade deals that encompass more than half the global economy. We've increased transfers to the provinces and territories to record levels to support health care and education. And we have done all this while controlling spending. For generations, Canadian families have understood the path to prosperity. Don't compromise tomorrow by spending recklessly today. Don't pile on debt you can't afford, and invest sensibly for a secure future. For governments, the principles are the same. We have been prudent, we have been practical, and we have stuck to our plan. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to announce this budget is balanced. This year, we are forecasting a $1.4 billion surplus and growing surpluses thereafter.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud to announce this budget is balanced. This year, we are forecasting a $1.4 billion surplus and growing surpluses thereafter. Now, this did not just happen. It took hard work, unwavering focus, and firm resolve. Some underestimate the discipline involved, suggesting that budgets, quote, balance themselves. They do not understand what it takes or why it matters so much.
they never will. But a balanced budget is the only way to ensure long-term prosperity for Canadians. It clears the path for further tax relief. It bolsters our top credit rating, supports lower interest payments, and inspires greater consumer and investor confidence. It protects health care and education. It strengthens our ability to respond to the unavoidable and the unexpected in a volatile world. And it means importantly that we can leave our children and our grandchildren an even more secure and prosperous country, not a hangover from reckless selfishness. When our government first came to power, we worked hard to reduce Canada's substantial federal debt, and we did it in short order by more than $37 billion.
Great.
Then, in 2008, the world was rocked by the greatest financial meltdown since the Great Depression. It was not a crisis of our making, but it was nevertheless one we could not escape. So we undertook extraordinary measures to protect the financial security of Canadians. But we did it with a clear and prudent plan to return to balance. We cannot borrow our way to prosperity, no matter what our opponents might say. Their path, the path of spending money we do not have on bureaucratic programs we do not need, leads to the crushing structural deficits that plagued this country for years. Mr. Speaker, when our Liberal opponents tried it, they found themselves in an economic swamp of their own creation. And by the time they figured out the disaster the country was facing, the only way out were brutal cuts to programs Canadians counted on. George Santayana said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Et pourtant,
still, given the chance, they seem determined to try it again. Ignoring the lessons of history, they would take the well-trod road to economic decline, a journey that will not end well.
Will not end well.
When our government launched its stimulus program, we made a solemn promise to the Canadian people.
Promise made, a promise kept. Mr. Speaker, this budget is written in black ink. This is the responsible way forward for Canada, which is why we also have introduced balanced budget legislation. This legislation will recognize that in times of crisis, a deficit may be the appropriate action, but only with a plan to return to balance and only with an accompanying freeze on operating spending. Mr. Speaker, I would now like to talk about tax restraint. Our approach has been clear and consistent. Take as little as possible and give back as much as you can. It all starts with the bedrock of our country, the family. Raising a family is hard work, and like our opponents, we prefer to leave it to the experts, Mom and Dad. It also costs a lot of money, which is why in recent months we expanded the universal child care benefit, introduced the family tax cut, increased the child care expense reduction limits, and doubled the children's fitness tax credit. These measures will make life more affordable for all Canadian families with children. Grâce à ces mesures,
For a typical two-earner family of four, these measures mean up to an extra $6,600 in their pockets in 2015. Helping families now is vital, but just as important is helping them plan for a secure future.
Low tax measures are extremely important, and one that I am particularly proud of is the tax-free savings account. When we introduced TFSAs in Budget 2008, it was the most significant boost to Canadians' ability to save for their future since the creation of the RRSP. Since then, close to 11 million Canadians, mostly low and middle-income Canadians, have opened a TFSA. Who are these Canadians? They are the people you see in the coffee shop and at the rink and in your place of worship. Half make less than $42,000 a year. Some are saving money to buy their first home or start their first business. Some are saving to put their children through college or university. Others are putting away extra money to make their hard-earned retirement more comfortable and enjoyable. In fact, more than half the people currently maxing out their TFSA contributions are low and middle-income Canadians over the age of 55. Mr. Speaker, I'm also very pleased to announce, therefore, that we will increase the TFSA annual contribution limit from the current $5,500 to $10,000. This is another promise made, another promise kept. We are also making life easier for the almost 4 million Canadians living with some form of disability. Many Canadians with disabilities, as well as seniors, want to enjoy greater independence living in the comfort of their homes. To help, we will create a new and permanent home accessibility tax credit, which will support. It will support those who want to renovate their dwellings to make them safer, more accessible, and more functional.
Our government has a strong record of support for people with autism spectrum disorders and the people who love them. Our budget builds on this with funding to pursue a greater understanding of autism and the needs of those living with its unique challenges.
We will also implement changes to the Copyright Act to implement the Marrakesh Treaty, allowing the 1 million Canadians with visual impairments greater access to adapted books and other printed material. Mr. Speaker, we want older Canadians to enjoy the golden years that are their reward after decades of hard work and diligent saving. Our government has already greatly expanded the guaranteed income supplement for very low-income seniors. Today, I am pleased to announce that we will give seniors more choice when it comes to managing their retirement income by reducing the minimum withdrawal requirements for registered retirement income funds. For more and more Canadians, caring for family not only means making sure the kids get the best start possible in life, it means being there for parents and other elderly relatives through their final days. When someone you love is gravely ill, you should be free to focus on what matters most. And that is why we are extending the employment insurance compassionate care benefits period from the current 6 weeks to 6 months. Along with supporting Canadian families, our government's priority has always been the creation and protection of opportunity for Canadians. Indeed, since the depths of the global recession, Canada has had one of the best job creation records in the G7. How did we do this? We cut taxes and slashed red tape, and we will continue to do both. Now, it is no secret that small businesses are critical to the health of the Canadian economy. They employ half of all Canadians in the private sector and contribute over 40% of our private sector GDP. And that is why we've worked so hard to support them over the years and continue to do so. We've lowered the small business tax rate to 11% and increased the amount of annual income eligible for this lower rate. Today, I am pleased to announce that our government will reduce the tax rate further, all the way down to 9% by 2019. This will be the largest tax rate cut for small businesses in more than 25 years.
Small businesses across the country will be able to use these additional tax savings to fuel growth, invest in capital, and hire more people.
Manufacturing accounts for more than 10% of our GDP and over 60% of our merchandise exports, and employs 1.7 million people all across the country. Some have questioned the role of manufacturing in Canada's future economic success. We do not. For this government, the words "Made in Canada" continue to fuel pride and inspire confidence. But we must give manufacturers the tools they need to create the products and the jobs of the future. And that is why I'm pleased to announce that we will help to boost the sector's productivity by introducing a 10-year investment incentive that will allow a faster write-off for machinery and equipment. We are also launching the Automobile Supplier Innovation Program. This investment of $100 million over the next 5 years will support our auto parts industry as it meets the constantly evolving demands of automakers and consumers.
Mr. Speaker, we will continue our collaboration with the provinces and territories in skills training. We will also bring employers and educators together to make sure that the skills of our graduates match the needs of our economy. For Canada's best and brightest graduate and postgraduate students, we will increase our support for internships that allow them to focus on industry-related research.
Students who need to work to put themselves through school, the current in-study income limit of the Canada Student Loan Program is a barrier. We will remove it. also reduce the program's parental contribution requirement to make it easier for middle-class families to finance the education of their children. We will make permanent our Foreign Credentials Recognition Loans program, which helps skilled newcomers cover the cost of having their qualifications recognized here. And we will extend the Working While on Claim Employment Insurance pilot project, which gives unemployed Canadians the ability to accept some work that could lead to learning new skills or even full-time employment while protecting their EI benefits. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, Canada is now attracting the best and brightest minds from around the globe in science, research, and development.
Build on this success, we will make a significant new investment of $1.3 billion over 6 years through the Canada Foundation for Innovation. And we will do that to ensure our researchers continue to have the leading-edge lab facilities they need to be the best in the world. While all their work is about changing lives, some of it is about saving them. A case in point, the Canadian Institutes of Health Research has been searching for a solution to drug-resistant infections. We will provide stable, multi-year funding for this important work.
Good idea.
And to help meet the challenges of an aging population, we will likewise provide stable, multi-year funding towards the establishment of the Canadian Centre for Aging and Brain Health Innovation based at Baycrest Health Services in Toronto.
Wonderful.
Since the era of the last spike, infrastructure has been vital to Canada's success as a country, which is why it is a key priority for our government. Our new Building Canada plan is the largest long-term federal investment in infrastructure in our country's history.
Our investments in infrastructure is 3 times greater than the previous governments. But building this great country is a project that never ends. Anyone who lives in or near or thriving in fast-growing cities knows the reality of traffic gridlock. So I'm pleased to announce the launch of a major new infrastructure program, the Public Transit Fund. This program, increasing to $1 billion per year by 2019, will be a permanent source of funding to provinces and municipalities for major public transit projects. This fund will result in more money for more transit projects by requiring a significant role for the private sector and by allowing for a more flexible payment approach. It will also drive efficiency in the design and costing of transit projects. Certains des investissements.
Canada is home to some of the world's largest and most experienced private sector infrastructure investors. This fund will require their involvement and expertise to deliver projects in a manner that is affordable for taxpayers and efficient for commuters.
Canada's prosperity has always been rooted in our wealth of natural resources. From the bounty of our seas to the abundance of the earth, these riches provide good, well-paying jobs for almost 2 million Canadians. Measures we will take to support this sector include the Forest Innovation Program, an expanding market opportunities program to help Canadian forestry companies adopt emerging technologies and develop new markets for Canada's wood product exports. And Mr. Speaker, when someone makes working the land or the sea their life's work, they have earned everything they have put into that enterprise. So we will raise the lifetime capital gains exemption to $1 million for those we will do that for those who make their living in farming or fishing. We are proud of our record when it comes to the responsible development of our natural resources, and will continue to pursue the vast opportunities with which we are blessed. At the same time, we will only proceed with projects that are safe for Canadians and safe for our environment. Mr. Speaker, we take this stewardship seriously. We are the only government in our nation's history to reduce Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. Proof that emissions can decline even as economic growth continues. To build on this record of good stewardship, Economic Action Plan 2015 includes investments to enhance marine transportation safety in the Arctic, as well as to strengthen environmental protection, spill prevention, and response measures in Canadian waters. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to address the dangerous world we live in. We say this often because it is true. Government has no greater responsibility than protecting the lives of its people. Our government understands the present dangers and is determined to respond responsibly without ambiguity or moral equivocation. Therefore, this budget includes measures to ensure the continued safety of Canadians. D'abord, il faut le dire.
First, it must be said, the jihadist terrorists who proclaimed a so-called caliphate in the Middle East have declared war on Canada and Canadians by name. In response, we have taken up the fight, both overseas and here at home.
Extremely grateful for the men and women in uniform who put their lives on the line every day defending our freedoms. Our government will ensure they continue to have what they need to accomplish the dangerous tasks Canadians ask of them. We will increase the annual escalator for national defence budgets to 3% starting in 2017-18. As a result, our spending on Canada's military will increase by $11.8 billion over 10 years. Meanwhile, the RCMP and CSIS will have new resources to not only investigate and prevent further terrorist attacks on Canadian soil, but to protect vulnerable young people susceptible to the lies and manipulation of ISIS recruiters, preventing them from throwing away their lives by traveling abroad to join the terrorists' reprehensible cause. Thanks to Canada, threats to Canada, I should say, are not limited to jihadis with guns and bombs. We will also protect Canada's most vital and essential services, including financial systems and communication grids. Our government is also focused on making our streets and communities safer from crime and putting the concerns of victims at the head of our justice system. Notre gouvernement a toujours soutenu.
Our government has always supported strong communities, firm in our belief that they are the foundation of the nation.
Making our communities great is the willingness of Canadians to help others. Today, I'm happy to say we will make that easier to do. We will create a capital gains tax exemption for public-spirited Canadians who wish to donate private shares or real estate when the proceeds of their sale are directed to a charity. For Canadians who support loved ones in other countries, we will take steps to make sure more of their money makes it to the recipient and less is gobbled up in administrative costs. Et pour aider les entreprises canadiennes.
And to assist Canadian businesses that want to invest in developing countries while helping pull those countries out of poverty, we will establish a development finance initiative to provide financing, technical assistance, and business advisory services to firms operating in developing countries.
Mr. Speaker, this entire budget is about our unflinching march into the future. So we must never forget our rich and inspiring history, because that history guides our future. As our 150th anniversary approaches, we have set aside substantial funds for the celebrations, both on a national scale and at the community level. Almost 150 years ago, the Fathers of Confederation had grand dreams and ambitions. If they could see us now, I think they would be pleased with the Canada we have become. We have been through some trying times, but now our hard work, the hard work of all Canadians, is paying off. Those winds of prosperity are powering us to an even brighter future. These are times of immense opportunity for Canada, but also of substantial risk. The choices we make can assure a secure and prosperous Canada for generations to come. Together, let us make the greatest country in the world even greater. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments, questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Skeena-Boku Valley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Finance Minister for his first budget. I think we understand why now it took a couple extra months to write this document, because on the job growth strategy, he had to borrow and, in fact, endorse the NDP's job growth strategy by our leader not 60 days ago. It's a curiosity why they voted against the NDP's idea to lower the small business tax rate, why Conservatives voted against the NDP's idea to help out the manufacturing sector, and why they voted against the idea to help out innovation in this country. But I'll allow the Minister to answer that. My question is the following. You know, after 10 years of failed economic strategy from these guys, billions of dollars going out to corporations, 400,000 lost manufacturing jobs, 300,000 more Canadians out of work than before the recession, and youth unemployment at twice the national rate. That if handing out billions to the wealthiest corporations doesn't work, why is the Conservative government stubbornly going ahead and handing out billions more to the wealthiest few with their income-splitting scheme?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I have outlined the great success story, which is Canada. And integral to that, of course, is our low-tax plan for jobs and growth, the 1.2 million net new jobs. Now, the NDP, which seems to like part of our budget, which might suggest that perhaps they'll vote for it, which we'd of course welcome, completely and continually attempt to mischaracterize the family benefit program. 2/3 of the benefits of the family program will go to low and middle income Canadians, 25% to Canadians earning less than $25,000. The TFSA, which is a tremendous savings regime for Canadians, is going to benefit Canadians right across the country, as is the flexibility and the choice provided by the new RIF structure.
The honourable member for York West.
In 2012, the Conservatives said they had to raise the age of OAS because the program wasn't financially stable, which we all know is not true.
That's right.
That takes money away from each of Canada's poorest and most vulnerable seniors. Now, this budget doubles the TFSA limit, but because the TFSA contributions...
Something not to be proud of.
Are you finished? Because the TFSA contributions are not considered in calculating OAS payments, this will result in allowing wealthier seniors to get billions of dollars in extra OAS payments. Right. Why are the Conservatives so concerned with cutting OAS for low-income seniors in order to give more OAS to the wealthier seniors? Don't they realize how unfair and un-Canadian that is?
Here, here.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the TFSA is the most popular savings plan that's been introduced since the RSP. 11 million Canadians partake, and of those who have maximized their contribution, 60% earn less than $60,000. The member opposite would focus on one small part of the program. It's not a problem at all, but if it ever becomes a problem in the future, we will, of course, deal with it. Right now, what is important is that this is providing savings opportunities for Canadians right across the country from every walk of life, and advantaging in particular our seniors.
The honourable member for Mississauga South.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all members of Parliament and all Canadians, I would like to thank Canada's Minister of Finance. Our government has done a lot for families by putting more money in their pockets, by expanding benefits like the universal child care benefit, by introducing the family tax cut, by raising child care exemptions, and by doubling the children's fitness tax credit. But, Mr. Speaker, across Canada, and especially in my home province of Ontario, Canadians are sick and tired of being stuck in gridlock that delays them from being with their loved ones or catching their child's soccer game. I ask the Minister, what does Economic Action Plan 2015 do to help these frustrated commuters?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question. The people of Mississauga South are fortunate to have such a dedicated the best in over 20 years. Economic Action Plan 2015 builds on our government's impressive record of providing the largest and longest infrastructure fund ever. We've listened to Canadians in our urban and suburban centres across the country. They are tired of traffic gridlock and long commutes that keep them from their families. So I'm proud that our budget introduced the Major Public Transit Fund, which will provide amounts rising to $1 billion every year for major public transit projects. It will be a permanent source of financing and bring in private sector discipline so projects will be delivered on time and on budget. Again, the opposition is opposed to an initiative that will create jobs and economic growth relieve traffic jams, and reduce smog and pollution.
The honourable member. I would like to congratulate our former colleague Olivia Chow, who fought for years to get bigger investment for public transportation. When you look at the recent commitments made by the NDP, we said that we would invest in public transit. Since 2011, we proposed to reduce the small business tax from 11 to 9%. We proposed to extend the deduction for machinery and equipment. These are measures which had been proposed by the NDP and which are now in the budget. Now that the Minister of Finance has implicitly admitted that the Conservative approach has been a failure so far, why does he not look to the social economy measures such as a national $15 a day daycare program, and why does it not bring in a minimum wage for employees in federal institutions, $15 an hour? This would help workers and the middle class, and it would also stimulate the economy. The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased that the member is supporting some of the measures we are proposing in our budget. And I certainly would hope that he will support the entire budget. Now, regarding low-income Canadians, Mr. Speaker, we have created over 1.2 million jobs. We have ensured that over 1 million low-income Canadians do not pay taxes anymore. We have reduced the tax burden to its lowest level in 50 years. We have also created a tax benefit for low-income Canadians who are at work. We have transferred payments to provinces for social programs, and we have done so to an unprecedented extent. The minister understands very well that if we are to give something to someone, well, we have to take something away from others, especially in a context of non-economic growth, as is currently the case. In spite of this reality, the minister seems to want Canadians to believe that he is giving them gifts, but at the end of the day, somebody has to pay the piper. And again, this is especially true when the economy is not growing, as is the case today. For instance, the government will spend billions of dollars on income splitting, but it increased the age of retirement. Does he believe this is a fair and balanced approach? I would also ask the minister whether if those people who will retire later will actually benefit from a TFSA. We only have 30 seconds left. The minister only has 30 seconds. Mr. Speaker, as I said, with regard to RIFs, we are offering choice by reducing the minimum amount for withdrawal for a person aged 45 or older. We are also going to decrease the taxes on small business, and as far as the TFSA is concerned, we will double the maximum contribution amount. We are also creating funds for public transit projects, and we are also going to increase compassionate care leave from 6 weeks to 6 months, and we have created a tax credit for accessibility so people with mobility issues can better live in their homes, and that way they can stay at home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as custom, I just have a few comments before we adjourn the debate today. It's remarkable to watch the Conservatives stand today. It must be the eve of an election, because just before, suddenly they're consumed with the notion that job growth might be an important thing for Canadians, that the 400,000 lost manufacturing jobs is now consuming the government, that the 300,000 Canadians more that are out of work today than before the recession suddenly are an interest of Canadians, that seniors, as was recommended by my friend from Thunder Bay, Rainy River, and adjusting the way that RIFs work in this country is now a concern for the Conservatives. And you know, imitation is a nice form of flattery, but certainly the Conservatives have missed an opportunity to give up on their stubborn and arrogant push on the $2.5 billion income splitting scheme that does nothing for 85% of Canadian families, overwhelmingly helps the wealthiest few, and have compounded the problem today, Mr. Speaker, by adding further help to the wealthiest Canadians by doubling the TFSA, which all studies have shown us again skew towards wealthier Canadians and away from those that need the help. The NDP in the following days and weeks and months will continue to put down ideas in front of Canadians. Now, the Conservatives picked up a few, but they missed the big ones. And we know that Canadians are looking for affordable childcare. They're looking for true environmental protection. They're looking for a manufacturing strategy to help get Canadians back to work. I look forward to illuminating some more of these ideas for the House and for Canadians. I look forward to the debate on the budget, Mr. Speaker. But I will now move, seconded by the member from Gaspé, Île-de-Madeleine, that the debate now be thankfully adjourned.
Mr. Cullen, seconded by Mr. Toon, moves to the